Anti-Catholics love to say that there were three popes at one time, but there weren't. There were never. Anti-Catholics love to say that there were three popes at one time. In fact, I remember two Mormon missionaries yelling at me about all the things they didn't like about the Catholic Church, and they told me there were three popes at one time. And so I asked the Mormon missionaries, who were the popes and what were their names? Dead silence. And I said, what year did this happen? They looked at each other and shrugged. They didn't know. And I said, you guys really dislike something you haven't studied and don't know anything about. I said, let me have your watch for a second. And the Mormon missionary handed me his watch. And I said, thank you. This is actually a very nice watch. I'm going to keep it. Thanks. And I put it in my pocket. And he said, except that it's not yours. And I said, yeah, it is. I think it's mine. And so I'm going to take it. And so the Mormon missionary next to him, I said, what do you think? And he said, it's his watch. And I said, but what if you thought it was yours? And I thought it was mine. And he thought it was his. Whose is it? And the Mormon missionary again said, it's still his. And I said, exactly. It's his watch. Even if I claim that it's mine, and even if you claim that it's yours, it's his watch, objectively. And that's the way it was with the Pope. Three popes at one time? There were never three popes at one time. There was one pope and two who claimed to be pope. Fake popes. We call them anti-popes. So there was one true watch and one true pope, but two others who claimed to be. See, Pope Clement moved the papacy to Avignon, France, because of violence that was happening in Rome, and he was scared for his life, and so he moved to France, and then he died, and Pope Gregory VII moved the papacy back to Rome, but he died in 1378, and a new pope, Urban VI, was elected by the church, by all the major parties in the church, and that's what you need to get a pope validly elected, is a majority vote by all the parties or almost all the parties in the church. And so we had a validly elected pope named Urban VI. However, Urban VI wasn't a very nice guy, and it wasn't long before people started to dislike him. He was really harsh. He was really derogatory. He picked on the bishops, and the bishops really didn't like his mannerisms, his stern, antagonistic attitudes and tones and that sort of thing. And so 13 members took it upon themselves to elect another pope. Except for the fact that you can't do that. In order to elect a pope, you have to have a majority vote, not 13 members. But 13 members tried to elect a new pope anyways on their own, and they named him Clement VII, and he moved back to Avignon, France, and he had the support of the French pretty much. And so it became a very political thing between France and Rome. And during that time, Urban VI excommunicated him, obviously, and just like Martin Luther, who was stubborn and pig-headed, he didn't take the excommunication. He tried to excommunicate the Pope in return, even though he had no authority to do so. Well, that's what Clement VII did as well. So there were mutual excommunications, and both sides were saying this, and both sides were saying that. And after about 5 or 10 years, see, here's the problem, and here's why it got confusing, because both popes died. And when I say both popes, I mean the real pope and the anti-pope. They both died and new ones were elected in their place. And so imagine this going on for 10 or 20 years. Now, people who are around 20 years later are like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know who the real pope is. I mean, we weren't there in the beginning. We don't even know the full circumstances. So people were really getting confused over the matter. Well, the real Pope, Boniface IX, didn't last too long. And so he died and they had to elect another one. Long story short, and it is a very long and confusing time period within the church, is that a lot of people were getting frustrated with this and the bickering and the back and forth. And so Clement VII in Avignon, he lost the support of all the French royalty, and so he pretty much got arrested. They just took him out. And in 1409, another anti-council tried to elect another anti-pope. His name was John the 23rd. And as you're going to see later in history, there will be a real John the 23rd later to show that there was never a real John the 23rd to begin with. So this was the third claimant to the papacy in about 30 years. And everyone was frustrated at this point, and so they actually called a real council in 1414, the Council of Constance. And tired of all the divisions, the true pope said that for the good of the church, I will freely resign and I will step down. He chose to make that decision, where the other two fake popes, well, they were removed forcibly, so they didn't have any choice. And then the whole church together re-elected a new pope named Martin V, who was agreeable to all and who was loved by all. That happened in 1417, so after like 30 years, 35 years or so, they finally had one pope again. Now, there was only one pope ever to begin with, Urban VI and his successors. But it was confusing to people because other people said, no, this is the pope. No, this is the pope. These are the popes. And the people in those countries, most of the average people didn't know better. They just said, why is there a pope in Rome? Why is there a pope in France? And these people in France are acting like he's a real pope, so maybe he's the real pope. And there was a lot of confusion among ordinary people, but the bottom line is there was only one real pope and two anti-popes. There were never three real popes at one time because that's, quite frankly, it's impossible. That's like having three presidents of the United States at one time. It's impossible. We only have one president in the United States, even if two others claim to be. And despite all the difficulties, Christ got his church through. The church always lasts. And in fact, the Catholic Church is the longest lasting institution on the face of the earth. And despite difficulties and disasters and huge storms within the church down through the centuries, the church has weathered all storms and has come through on the other side. Despite the people inside who are sometimes pig-headed and aren't open to the Holy Spirit. And Christ is the head of the Catholic Church and he guides his church nonetheless. He said and promised that he would guide his church into all truth by the Holy Spirit in John 16:13. And so Christ guides his church despite whether people listen or not, despite whether Judas betrays him, despite whether Peter betrayed him, despite whether all the apostles ran away. Christ still filled them with the Holy Spirit and guided them by the power of the Holy Spirit. So whether people listen or not, whether they're good priests or bishops or popes or not, Christ still lives and Christ still works. And the church comes out on the other side without having changed doctrines and without having changed official teachings. Yes, sometimes there's scandals and sometimes there's people who don't act like they should. I mean, even the Bible warned about wolves in sheep's clothing. But what did Christ say? The gates of hell will not prevail against the church. Meaning the gates of hell are going to try to prevail. Satan's going to try to attack the church, but the gates of hell won't prevail. Jesus prevails, and so does his bride, the church. If you like this short church history, check out our other apologetics and church history playlists. In fact, we just made a YouTube video recently about the story of the Catholic Church. Go back and watch that from about a few weeks ago. It's super inspiring and it's a must watch. If you would like us to come to your parish and give an apologetics or church history talk, teach you how to evangelize, parish mission, confirmation retreat, inspire your parish or your group to be a keynote speaker for your conference, feel free to check out our website at catholictruth.org. We'd be happy to serve your group, your parish, or your conference. And if you would like to follow us for daily inspiration, make sure to check out our Facebook page and our Instagram and TikTok, all of those platforms below. And if you love what we do and you love how many people we're bringing back to the Catholic Church, we're in a process of growing and expanding right now, and we really need you to help us. We're 501c3 and we are reaching millions of people and growing so fast, and we really need to bring on a bigger team and we really need to reach more people than ever before. And only you can help with that. If you help us, we continue. If you don't, we don't, because we literally are completely dependent on you. We're a charity and we depend on charity, just like Paul did, just like Jesus did, just like the apostles did. Check out Luke chapter 8, 1-3. It says that the women of means, women who had lots of money, they provided for Jesus and the apostles all the time so that they can do full-time ministry that the Father sent them to do. Well, the Father has sent me to do full-time ministry as well. And so we're asking God the Father through you to support this ministry. Whether you can't give a lot and you only can give $10 a month, or where God has blessed you abundantly and you could give $100, $200, or even $500 a month for the salvation of souls. We are here for you, and we give everything back to the salvation of souls. Every day, every night, we are working for the salvation of souls, bringing people back to the Catholic Church, catechizing the masses, and forming future generations of Catholics. That is Catholic Truth, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you for watching, and God bless.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate. I'm the video editor here at Catholic Truth, and I just wanted to say on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for taking some time to watch our videos and learn more about your faith. You guys really make this channel possible, and we truly appreciate you being here. So thanks again, and God bless.